Hello, Alberto. Welcome
How are
to.
you?
I'm doing good.
Doing great.
Yeah, welcome to Ignite Kingdom Living short video talk. So I just want to ask you a few questions. I understand you've been a worshiper for a long time. I
Yes.
and you and your wife Kimberly, you've been a couple worship team.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how have this life of worship impacted your life?
Yeah, we we I moved here to Nashville and about 21 years ago, and she and Kimberly, my wife, she had moved to Nashville recently. So we began to we met at a church where they were teaching on prophetic worship every
Mm-hmm.
night.
Yeah.
So it was new for me. I was coming from more of a traditional background, and so this like spontaneous sound and songs, it was like, whoa, seriously. I was
Wow.
like really intrigued by it, and so we began to both of us attend this same church, uh, and so it was an experience really wonderful. That helped to unlock what was already inside of us but was kind of dormant at that time. And
Wow.
so we as friends began to get together, and we weren't a couple or anything. We were just friends, and we just, okay, let's just practice this thing, So I will begin to play, and she would begin to sing anything that would come to our
Wow.
minds. She would sing out of the scriptures. I would, play, and so we practiced and practiced, and I did those things, and the more you did, uh, the more we did, it was uh, became more natural. It became
Yeah.
easier
Yeah.
and easier just to relax and be in a place of just like a child, in the
Yeah.
God's presence with no agenda, no
So
set of
sweet.
songs. Okay, what are we doing? So God began to form in us the concept of starting just like an artist, like a
Mm-hmm.
painter that begins with a white canvas. You begin with nothing, and then as the artist begins to stroke, just put some colors, backgrounds, accents, all. So that's what kind of what we carry from the Lord. So we begin with a white canvas of
Wow.
sound, of
So
nothingness,
yeah.
and then we allow the Lord to. We create space for the Lord to, lead us into put the right kind of things in the flow.
Wow.
So that's what we carry. We love to create space.
Wow. So
And
so in that you mean that basically when you guys come into the place of worship, you don't have anything in mind. You are just there empty as a child.
right,
And you just want the Spirit of God to lead you
right,
like a wave wherever He wants you guys to go.
right.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's it's wonderful because you never know. It takes faith at the beginning. If you're a starting worshiper and want to
Mm-hmm.
move more into more prophetic worship, it could be intimidating to do 2 hours of nothing.
Wow.
It requires a level of skill higher than just your typical regular worship set, if you will, because you're just doing songs and you're following an order of songs. But if you wanna, this would be an advice to young, leaders that want to move more into spontaneous worship. It's just to begin to practice with little things. In between songs, you can
Mm-hmm.
just add one more song, one more chorus, for like just instrumentally.
Yeah.
And what we've seen, what I've seen so much in our church and our service, is that there's an imbalance of how much of just instrumental things
Mm-hmm.
happen and so many human words going on at the same time. If you think in a gathering, there's human words in the worship part, the worship songs, human words in the announcements, human words, the preaching, and I mean, there's all night you're hearing somebody talk. So where's the balance where the people hear God by themselves?
Wow.
Not somebody else telling them what God is saying,
Mm-hmm.
But there has to be a place where needs to be a balance where the people themselves hear their Father
Wow.
speaking to them. So that is the tremendous value of prophetic music, especially with musicians, because we can play
Mm-hmm.
the heart of God. We can pray as we play, identify chord progressions, sounds,
Mm.
rhythms from the spirit realm that
Mm-hmm.
would speak to. I mean, I've had people come and say, "Hey, when you play that riff, the
Mm-hmm.
Lord spoke audibly to me,
Wow.
words
Wow.
through
Amazing.
the sound."
Wow.
So there's that, it has been lost, that dimension of the tabernacle of David. That's what those guys did.
Wow.
They just sat there and capture the sounds from heaven.
So this is basically like practicing
Yes.
waiting on God. Is
Hmm.
that how you would define the prophetic worship? More of waiting on God to speak to you.
Right, and you just begin to move. It's like a river.
Mm-hmm.
You just flow. You're not even thinking about what you're playing. You just begin to play.
Wow.
Just let the Lord
Lead you.
lead you, because it's easier to, if something is static, you can't. It's not as easy to change direction
Mm-hmm.
as if you're walking. Somebody can just push you over and you just go. So if you just begin to flow and music, and then just let the Lord begin to, hey, push that. You'll hear a melody, you'll hear a rhythm, and you follow that, and the other instruments follows that, and so it becomes a swirl
Wow.
of sound.
Yeah. Now, does the life of purity in any way impact the worshipper's worship? The life of purity, does it in any way rather affect the worshipper's worship?
Well, I would think it's the purity is a byproduct of being with the Lord. Is you as you are with Him,
Mm.
that beauty. You become what you behold. So the more you behold how beautiful He is and how holy is that comes on you, and that's the beauty of that is that the beauty of His holiness.
Mm-hmm.
The more you spend in that place,
Yeah.
it rubs on you.
Oh wow. That's great. That's great. Well, so if you were to advise an upcoming um, worship leader,
Hmm.
what would be the major advice you give to an upcoming worship leader?
Yeah, it's to lead somebody, or to lead a group of people. It's a different animal than you're just playing
Mm-hmm.
before the Lord or for yourself as part of your worship time.
Mm-hmm.
What I've seen a lot in the churches is that a lot of praise leaders or worship leaders, they're really not anointed to lead others. So they don't open the door. They don't open heaven for the rest to come in. So it's really hard for the congregation, because they might have a nice voice, or play incredibly, but if they're not opening, if they don't have an anointing to lead, when you have an anointing to lead, you open the door for others to go into heaven, not just for yourself.
Wow.
So if you're not anointed to lead, it becomes really hard for the people to enter. You're always pushing, and it's like it's human effort.
Yeah.
But if somebody has been anointed by the Lord, it's a sovereign thing.
Wow.
It's easy for the people to, you just start and they're in, because that's your anointing.
Wow. So my last question would be this: how will a worship leader, an upcoming worship leader, get this anointing?
Um, See, I don't know that you can get it. I think I might be wrong, but I
Mm.
think it is sovereign.
Okay.
I don't think you can pray your way into it. Just like God chose a set group of people, and like in the old, you could not opt into the Levites or whatever. They were a set number. This is my vision of but you can do these things. If you don't have this anointing, you can surround yourself with people that have it, and it's okay. It will be better
Mm-hmm.
than just to, because what happens is if you don't carry this anointing to lead others, it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be really difficult for. And this is the place where you ask friends, and you ask pastors, and you ask people around. Hey, when I lead, does the heavens open, or is it hard? This is like struggle to sing with you and to enter into worship? That question, if somebody can learn to ask that question to people around, it will tell if they say, oh yeah, when you lead, it's just so easy to go in, and that's important to know
Yeah.
if you're called to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think I have to rephrase my question because I understand that the giftings and callings of God they are sovereign.
Right.
You don't get to pick it.
Right.
But the level of expression of that, I think it varies and differs from person to person. Even in the priesthood, I understand that every priest, um, they are not all at the same level of expression of the office or administration of the office. They are all at different level, even in the call.
Right.
So
Right.
for those that are called, I'm talking about who are called
Mm-hmm.
into this ministry, what differentiates worshiper A from worshiper B in terms of drawing the presence of God or being able to open the heavens faster
Mm-hmm.
than the other?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I don't think I know. I mean, I think
Okay.
there's elements that come into play. Your life, of faithfulness.
Mm-hmm.
Being faithful in the little. It's very important that you are faithful to with two people and 2,000. There's no
Mm-hmm.
difference.
Yeah.
Um, and how how you just trust him
Yeah.
with not trusting in your own giftings to
Yeah.
get you, that's it's not trusting. It's like trusting in your own understanding, but
Yeah.
it's you lay down your giftings, and if you're content with not even playing,
Mm-hmm.
that if God tells you that, because I've done sessions where I've sat there in silence for 40 minutes one time. And it's uncomfortable because if God doesn't give you anything, I'm like, I don't have anything. But just play something. It's difficult for leaders because they have this responsibility for the people, and that's understandable. But ultimately, the musicians that are called by God do not belong to the church; they belong to the Lord.
Wow, that's very
And
important.
that's a huge difference because most of the musicians in the church are being, I don't want to say used, but it's more a way of using the musicians for the music program than seeing them as a special tribe of people that belong to God.
Yeah.
It's a
Wow.
different concept, but so that's what I would love to see. Um, that God would bring back that tribe of music, because when you have a group of musicians that are anointed,
Mm-hmm.
they're owned by God. You put them in a room, it's scary.
Yeah.
The power of the Lord will
Mm-hmm.
manifest incredibly. So we haven't seen that yet. We haven't. We've seen it a few times, but it's because it's scary. It shifts the atmospheres like regionally
Well,
when
I,
you
I
have
said
that.
I was sorry. I said I was asking the last question, but another question came into my mind as you were talking. So I'm thinking, okay, will I be a righteous man to ask it?
The what?
So I'm thinking, will I be a righteous man to ask the question after I've said that was my last question? Well, I don't know. What do you think? Maybe I should just ask it. What do you think?
Exit.
Yeah, maybe I should just ask the last question. I mean, like I've asked the last question, but
Sure.
okay. So this is the question. You were talking about when um, people who are called to this ministry, gather together in unity with one heart, and they're just all there for the Lord. Scary things happen in terms of the explosion of God's presence, the manifestation of the Spirit.
Hmm.
Um, can you talk about any one of, have you ever been in an event that happened where there was something unusual from the normal atmosphere you see in church because
Right.
people were united in that kind of praise? If you've been, can you talk about it briefly?
Well, um, I haven't seen a lot of it. I mean, we were, it's still a part of the same church, but we had a season that we oversaw the soaking department. We
Hmm.
call it soaking department.
Yeah, so can you explain what you mean by
So
soaking?
we
Because
would
not a
have,
lot of people will understand that.
just a worship time,
Yeah,
but
okay.
it's more on the prophetic side.
Hmm.
So we would have this time before the service, and like we would have it at 9 to 10, something like that, before the official service in the on Sunday
Nine to
mornings.
10.
Uh,
1 hour.
or I think it was 9 or 8:30. I can't remember. I think it was 8:30 to 10. But that began to grow in such a way. It's just I worked with a team of guys, and
Hmm.
we encountered some pretty amazing things. I mean, people will come and
Hmm.
fill the halls, and it was just the present, the expectation of God's glory was just. I've never experienced anything like that.
Wow.
It was a season of that. I've been to some of the Morning Star.
Hmm.
I remember the Warfare Conference, Heart of David conference with Don Potter and all those guys. That was a scary time too. It was the presence of the Lord was it was the fear of the Lord
Wow.
in the house. Um, so it was once you taste that, you are never the same. You're like, yes, you're ruined.
For the you're in for the ordinary. You can't just be
Exactly.
normal with church as
No,
usual.
because it's like
Hmm.
it's like you're addicted to it. It's like it's
Yeah.
a that's electric
Wow.
glory, that is just so amazing.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we trust that the Lord will bring the whole church into this
Yes.
experience.
Yes. Come
So
on.
that's what we're asking for.
That's
All
confirmation.
right. All right. Thank you so much, Alberto. And then we'll see you next time.
Okay.
God bless you.
Thank you. Bless you.
Yeah.